Hello and welcome back to the Great Patriotic War. And we've finally reached the end of August and we're moving into September. So there's nothing more to be done except for clicking end turn and seeing what happens. So the game always starts north to south, so we'll just zoom in here as far as we can and let it move stuff around for us. All right, the moment of truth. Always very scary. All right, well, welcome back. I've really enjoyed this turn. There was a lot to do, and it's feeling like we're going to get into perhaps more favorable weather for us, especially in the north, slowing down the Germans. But you can see how close they are to just breaking through and getting that rail line. And once that rail line is dead, we are going to have to pull back a lot of our forces, swing them around to the other side, or drop them into Leningrad proper, because we will need to retake that rail line in whatever way we can. It is the most important thing for us. So if they take it this turn, we are in a lot of trouble. So the air sorties are happening. You can see I'm flying a lot of missions and they are flying basically none. Scary stuff. I didn't like what I was seeing there in the south. I don't know what that was, but it didn't look too hot. Oof. Not good. Well, we expected that. It's kind of what those guys were there for. So it seems like they did choose to go a little bit more south. Just going for the weaker part. Thank God I moved those guys up to the river line. There goes Smolensk. Okay. Well, it doesn't look like we had any super bad snafus. But you never know until you really start looking at it. We lost a couple of battles that I wasn't quite expecting to lose, I will admit. But I think they might have just had more than my recon gave them credit for. I'm just going to turn off the air for a second. The first thing I want to look at is what happened in the battles around Kiev. So there were 2 battles, and both times Malinowski was going up against the 113th Infantry Division. Oh no, 2 different infantry divisions, sorry. The 62nd and then the 113th. And they just did a really shit job. I don't understand why necessarily, but they should have been throwing up a 149 and they were throwing up a 35. The second one, I don't get it. This thing, again, supposed to be throwing up a 232 and they threw up a 30. So obviously this guy absolutely blows. So he's going to be replaced. I think that kind of settles that discussion. I don't know what else to say. It's like, how does that happen? This looks a little scary, not gonna lie. The 267th Infantry Division seems kind of strong. We might have to abandon Kiev. And that cuts off the rail too. Ooh, that's very bad. Very bad indeed. Let's hope we have the movement points to even get the hell out of there. I don't know if we will. Well, it was always part of the plan to abandon Kiev. I was not going to hold it to the last man. Excess garrison in Western Europe. Exceeding force requirements in Western Europe has political benefits for the Axis. Soviet partisans, they're doing their thing. And then on September 4th, 1941, the USS Greer became the first U.S. warship fired upon by a U-boat. Even though U.S. is still a neutral power at this point, tension heightens between the two nations. U.S. is now committed to convoy duties between the Western Hemisphere and Europe. On September 11th, Franklin D. Roosevelt orders U.S. Navy to shoot on sight if any ship or convoy is threatened. So the war at sea basically kicks off. Which is about all the Americans can do to help us right now, because they're just not in a position where they have an army yet. Well, the good news is that they didn't make it all the way to our Kursk-Orel line. The bad news is they did break out of Bryansk pretty damn easily. So I guess it is what it is. Other good news is they did not break over this river. I was kind of scared of that, to be honest. So, and they also didn't push through our line here, which was very weak. Going north up the line, we didn't really have any action. Everyone was pretty far away from us. Looks like they did move in a Panzer division here. That's interesting. But again, we held. We held here. Quite a bit of combat, actually. There's actually a little bit of combat here. Just knocked back some of our units. So, I mean, it's not too bad, I guess. Would love to know why they got so badly knocked back, but they really just didn't have a lot of combat prep there. The 32nd Army did absolute God's work, honestly. They were attacked 3 times and they held all 3. Attacked by over 30,000 troops too. That's no joke. That's a lot of men attacking them. But they were still able to hold them. So that's really good news for us. So Novgorod was able to hold, thus saving the rail line. And the rail line is really what we are worried about holding. We want to hold that as long as possible. Cool. Let's just check a couple more combats here. And then we'll probably call it a video. This video is supposed to just be kind of turning the turn. So we're just looking at what happened and talking about our plans for next time. This whole thing here was a lot worse than I thought it would be, this northern attack. I thought these divisions might be able to like put up some sort of resistance because they had the river line. But really they were just smacked by these infantry divisions. And they did commit quite a bit of, like even this thing didn't hold. It did throw up its full combat value, but this actually got buffed for some reason. So like Farnbacher is obviously a bit of a god. I mean, this had a lot of artillery attached to it. Upsfelder, also apparently a very good general, because look at that number. Oh my god. The stats. The stats. Shot down 4 of their planes. That's good. The question is, do we evacuate or not? Just shot down 2 of those bastards. That's good. Shot down 1 there. Didn't shoot any of those down. They're trying to get an idea for where our units are. The 214th Rifle Division routed, but they were just there to slow down the enemy. They did their job. I can't believe these guys held, actually. I'm very surprised by that. Obviously, these Hungarians are not too hot because 19,000 men is only throwing up a 36. So something's going on there. And they even had air support. So these guys are absolutely useless. That's really important to know. But yeah, I'm really impressed that they held here. I was not expecting that at all. I was expecting anything that got touched along this line to just instantly explode into a million pieces. So I'm very happy about that. They didn't really do too much here. It looks like they're trying to flank us, so that's a little bit freaking scary. I mean, we got some cavalry units coming in, but it might not be enough to hold them. I don't know. I think they're probably going to cross next time. Just guessing. Odessa is becoming a bloodbath. Oh my god. They're losing so many men. That's crazy. I mean, it's good for us, but it sucks for them. Yeah. So I think it's clear that we need to do whatever we can to support a retreat here. And I mean, it would be quite the tall order to try to knock these guys back. But perhaps we could at least surround them. You know, maybe we could walk around them. Make them have to break out, which probably will cost them more movement points than just regular doing their thing. So we'll take a look at that. It might be possible. We'll have to look. Up here, all these combats were essentially as expected. A little surprised that we had retreats instead of routes. So, that's actually, in some ways, it's better than expected. Because I was really expecting just to be annihilated, a la turn 1. This thing routed, but it was also in a very bad spot, and it was going right up to Stavka. All of these little combats are fine. Oh wow, this did really well. Not so much the second combat. They're going to need some reinforcements. It looks like, did they bring in artillery? Yeah, when they fought it again, they brought in some serious heavy guns. The super heavy howitzer battalion. I don't even know what that is. It sounds scary. Super heavy artillery battalion. Heavy artillery. So maybe that's like 240 millimeter. I don't know. Whatever it was, it hit hard. All right. Let's also check up on the losses screen for last turn. So last turn we lost 25,000 men. Or they lost 25,000 men. We lost 36,000. Very even, very close. So they actually bled quite a bit of manpower last turn. We lost a lot of guns and armored fighting vehicles, but so did they. They still lost 108 guns and almost 40 armored fighting vehicles, of which... did they lose anything good? A couple Panzer IV's. Nothing like super crazy. Some Panzer III's and some light tanks. Nothing like super crazy though. Lost a few Stugs. Always good to knock those out. Those are really good. But of their artillery, most of the artillery that they lost was just some 81 millimeter mortars and like some very light field artillery, like the Pak 36 37 millimeter AT gun. But those are going to be replaced anyways. It's not a big deal for them. In the air, they lost 13 recon planes. They've lost 104 recon planes already. Oh. They almost have as many recon losses as we do. The AI seems to only like to fly recon missions. They don't fly anything else. So they haven't lost any fighters or anything to really speak about. Not since the first couple of turns. But they lost 13 recon planes for some stupid reason. And a transport. That must have been an operational loss, but still, we were able to shoot down 6 and shoot down 4 with flak, so I'm happy with that. Okay. So we lost Smolensk Air Base, a bunch of air bases. We lost a fortified unit. That was the one near Kiev. We knew about this 98th NKVD Border Guard Detachment. We knew about that getting disbanded. We lost a couple of AA battalions. They must have been left in Smolensk or somewhere. Smolensk is really the only city that fell, so I assume they were in Smolensk. So yeah, we lost some kind of worthless stuff. Nothing all that important. So I think it was a pretty successful turn for us. If I'm going to grade our turn, I'd give us like a B, honestly. Maybe strategically not the best, but I think tactically we did better than we have been doing. That's for sure. And that can only bode well for this turn, because now we have a better idea of the direction that they want to go. And they're kind of falling into our little, I wouldn't call it a trap so much as our funnel. We're funneling them towards the stronger units that we have. So, I mean, I say strong, but I really mean just like barely existing units. So we'll try to get them ready in time. Don't know if that's going to happen, but it'd be amazing if they could. But really, we just have to throw stuff on the line and hope it slows them down and see what they can do. But they did end up getting that rail connected, which sucks. But it cost them time. So that's all we can hope for in a lot of these battles. Time is on our side, because if we can delay till winter, that gives us a chance. But we just want to make sure that they're not driving freely across massive areas like they were able to do in Ukraine. Because they covered so much ground over here with no resistance. They basically had nothing resisting them from like Uman, basically from Viniesta all the way to the river. They went, 20 hexes without even touching a unit. So I would not like a repeat of that. Especially if they get into Donetsk and we don't have any reinforcements down there yet. Could be in trouble. Now it looks like they're kind of on the road to Kharkov here. Really, they're pretty excited about trying to get this huge encirclement done. I don't think it's going to happen for them. I think we're going to be able to pull out. I'm not super worried about that. Let me see what the earliest turn I can legally pull out of there without... where's the victory screen? So when am I allowed to pull out of Kiev? Turn 13 is their target turn. And we don't want to give them any bonus points. So, I mean, they were supposed to capture Smolensk on turn 4. They captured on turn 12. So that's pretty good. They're supposed to capture Pskov on turn 3. They captured on 4. So far, the only ones that they actually did on time have been Lvov, Riga, and Minsk. But those actually all happened before we even took control of the game, so I don't feel too bad about that. There's literally nothing we could do. And now we could give up Kiev next turn without any penalty, but we have to hold it one more turn. So we kind of want to leave enough in the city itself so that it doesn't fall this turn, but then pull out next turn. So that's going to be the plan. And I'd rather do that than stick around too long and get screwed. Right. What is their current high water mark? 436. And they have until January 1942 to get to 525, which I assume they can do easily. I can't imagine that they'll have a problem doing that. They are currently getting... So they, by capturing that, they did bump themselves up a little bit. So definitely have to worry about that. Our men on the field is starting to get closer, but we've got a long road to arm up. Our guns are definitely starting to get closer. Armored fighting vehicles are starting to get closer because the Russians start out with a lot of tanks, a lot. They're able to lose 700 per day and still keep fighting. But the reason they can lose 700 today is because they start with an incredible amount of tanks that they never again have. They never get back up to that number. But what they do get is better tanks. So the T-34s that we have in the beginning of the war are actually the really crappy ones. We don't start getting the T-34Ms until later in the year, until later in 42. And once those start hitting the field, they can actually make a big difference. I think that'll be the first time where our tank divisions have a little bit of pop to them. Until then, we just have really nothing. You see this total aircraft number shooting down here? That's because these two big drops are because the squadron size has changed. It initially in the game it starts at a ridiculously large size. If you look at the squadrons that we have now, everybody is pretty much like 20 and less. So like some of these are a little overstacked still, but for the most part our groups have gotten a lot smaller, but we have a lot more of them. So the standard size has shrunk. And basically we're heading towards 8 to 12, depending on the aircraft type. But that happens automatically. You can't really control it. All you can do is bring in, replacement squadrons when the old ones get moved out. I actually prefer having the smaller squadrons because they're more usable. That it lets you keep the air bases a little bit more under control. But it still gives you, pretty close combat power. And it's not as big of a risk. If you want to commit, a squadron or two to combat, it's easier to manage that than to tell it to fly 8, but sometimes it doesn't fly 8, or sometimes they're just like milling around near the airbase because they do like these automatic patrols above their airbase. And what I saw in my multiplayer game is when they're doing that, they just get freaking shot down. So like it's kind of safer to have the smaller air wing size, because at least if they're caught out, lollygagging around the base, they don't all get shot down. So I think it's actually a positive change for us having them shrink. So next time what we'll do is we'll go through all the air moves. The objectives for the air campaign haven't really changed that much. It's interdict and impede. So we want to interdict their supplies to any sort of salient that they're attempting. So like this rail line here is our major target. Our other major targets are this Chernigov area line. So it doesn't really matter which hex we hit. We just got to hit some hexes. We want to make sure these guys are out of gas by the time they get to us. We also want to really try to hammer this line here that they just were able to recapture. I think maybe the best places to do that are maybe a little bit further south now. But they're going to get a lot more supplies in once they get those rails repaired. So it's kind of a ticking time bomb. We don't really have the ability to project any air down into this area just because there's so many air bases. They can be putting up a lot of planes around them. So we don't really want to risk a ton. But on these smaller rail lines where there's fewer air bases around and the supplies, like they're more overextended, they need the supplies more. That's where we really want to hit them and hit them hard. So that's kind of the plan for the air turn. Till next time, see ya.